Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Sinai Temple's weekly Parsha study class. Tomorrow is Rosh Chodesh, Kislev, so we begin this evening the prayer for the new month. That means 25 days till Hanukkah. Downstairs at Sinai Temple, we have our Sinai Temple and Sinai Keep Academy holiday boutique. If you're interested in stopping by and you're local, please do. Really amazing gifts for you and your family. But tonight we also have something really powerful happening at Sinai Temple in the Ziegler Sanctuary, and that is a conversation with Omer Shem Tov. Often we call released hostage, but I now call a free Israeli. I think it's important to name what he is now. He's not a hostage that was released. He is a free person. In fact, every morning in our tefillot, we say, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, she'asani ben chorin. We thank God for making us a free person. And we usually just mean something metaphorically, but tonight it will mean something really literal, as Omer Shem Tov was held in Hamas captivity in 505 days. I bring the Omer Shem Tov lecture not just as a public service announcement that we hope you join us. There are tickets that you can get online still, and make sure you do that. But I bring it in connection with our Parsha Toldot. In Parsha Toldot, we read about the warring nations in Rebecca's womb. And of course, that is Jacob and Esav, Yaakov and Esav. And I bring you teachings from this book called A Difficult Beginning, a post-October 7th commentary on the book of Genesis. This came out literally a year after 10:7, and it was how to look at the Parsha with the eyes of what was happening in the world of a post-10:7 world. Now we're 2 years later, and when I look back at some of these teachings, they are both relevant and also, thank God, not relevant. But the relevancy that I do want to speak about is just one word, and it's otef. Otef has become a very popular word these days because when you now go to Israel, and I call it destructive tourism, you go to the Nova site. For a while, you were going to destroy kibbutzim. Now you're going back to kibbutzim that are being rebuilt and people going back to them and living there. But people say, are you going to the Otef? What does the Otef mean? The Otef was known as the Gaza envelope. Otef Aza, the Gaza envelope. Over time, people were saying, don't call it Otef Aza. It's not the Gaza envelope, but Otef Yisrael. It's the Israeli envelope. But right now, we're going to see maybe it shouldn't be called Otef at all and should have a different name. I say that first about the word Otef. I just came from our minyan where two young men were celebrating beginning their B'nai Mitzvah weekend. And when we put on the talit every single morning, what bracha do we say? The blessing? Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher gishalem b'tavtivanu lehit atef batzitzit. We thank God for the mitzvah of what? Not putting on the talit, but wrapping, enveloping ourselves in the talit. And so I want to go into this idea of what it means to wrap ourselves in the talit and how that is related to the name of the Gaza envelope and how perhaps that should change. So I just said that when we wrap ourselves in the talit, it's called lihitatef, to envelop ourselves in the tzitzit. And when you look in the dictionary, in this article or that I'm teaching from, it's called Musings on the Misnomer of Otef Aza, the misnaming of the Gaza envelope. That Naomi Gretz, who wrote this article, says if you look it up in the dictionary, Otef says to envelop oneself, to cover oneself, to wrap oneself, to put on a cloak, a talit. Another dictionary adds to cover oneself, to dress and put up on an upper garment, to wrap oneself in the festive cloak. And Rashi, the great commentator, says, Otef, what does it mean? That you wrap yourself in nice clothes. On Shabbat, you otef, you wrap yourselves in beautiful clothes, something that you don't wear during the week. We're going to look at the word otef and see, is it a positive connotation or is there a negative connotation? In the Tanakh, in the entire Torah, prophets, and writings, the word otef, or that root, is mentioned 20 times, 8 of them being in the book of Psalms, in the Tehillim. She writes, many of these are about wrappings one, not a clothes, but wrappings one's spirit or heart. But they can be positive or negative. What can you be? You can be enveloped in love, but you can also be wrapped up in fear and distress, wrapped up in famine, wrapped up in failing spirit. In Psalm 102, we read, Ki ya'atof. There is a prayer of the lowly man when he is faint. How do they say the word faint? Ki ya'atof. And he pours forth his plea before God. And what does the commentary say? Rashi says, when he is enveloped in distress and famine. In my time of distress, Psalm 77 says, I turn to God. With my hands uplifted, my eyes flow all night without respite. I will not be comforted. I call God to mind. I moan, I complain. In Hebrew, then it says, V'tit atef ruchi. My spirit fails. The exact opposite meaning of when we wrap ourselves in love in the talit. In this case, V'tit atef ruchi. In this case, I'm wrapped up in a failed spirit. At the same time, we have a different version of Otef. You can celebrate, sing, and rejoice in God's goodness when the fields are covered with grain in abundance. This one comes from Psalm 65. You take care of the earth and irrigate it. You enrich it greatly. You bless its growth. You crown the year with your bounty. The meadows are clothed with flocks, the valleys mantled with grain. And here it says, Va'amakim ya'atfu bar. Right? The valleys are mantled with grain. They raise a shout. They break into song. In this case, Ya'atov bar, Amakim Ya'atov bar, that it's enveloped with beauty and vegetation. One more, Psalm 107. Some lost their way in the wilderness, hungry and thirsty. Their spirit failed. In Hebrew, nafsham, nefesh, soul, bahem, there's tit ataf. Their soul failed. It says the same word, hitatef, but in this case, it's not wrapped in love, it's wrapped in distress. In their adversity, they cried to the Lord. God rescued them from their troubles. Let them praise God for his steadfast love. In the book of Jonah, we also see Lehitatef. What happens there? When my life was ebbing away, he says, Behitatef al nafshi. I called God to mind, meaning I wrapped God around my soul. My prayer came before you into your holy temple. We also see Hitatef in the book of Job in a very difficult time, and also in the book of Lamentations. In the book of Job, it says, if I go east, God is not there. If I go west, I do not perceive God. If I go north, God is concealed. Then it says, Ya'atof yamin. It means that the south was invisible. I do not behold God. What does Rashi write about this? That God was hiding the directions so that Job would not see God. My eyes are spent with tears, my heart is in tumult, my being melts away over the ruins of my poor people. But atef olel v'yonek, my babies and sucklings languish in the squares of the city. That's in Lamentations, right? But otef, I'm basically overcome with terrible things. How does this relate to our Parsha of Toldot with Jacob and Esav? Naomi Gratz writes, in this week's Parsha, Rebecca is about to give birth. She goes to God to complain that there are birth pains in her stomach, and God explains why, because there are twins that are going to be warring nations. She understands that Jacob, the younger blessing, will inherit the blessing and not the older. And then it goes on to say, what Rebecca tells Jacob to do, if you remember, what does Jacob do? He's the younger one. He's not supposed to get the birthright, Esav. Rebecca tells Jacob what? Wrap yourselves in basically fur hair so that you seem to be like your older brother Esav in front of your father Jacob. How is the trickery done to get the birthright for Jacob? The trickery is done by otef, by wrapping himself. Jacob protests, but his mother says, don't worry, the curse will be on me. The disguise works and Isaac gives him the blessing. Naomi Gretz then continues, I always wonder when I read this story, does Rebecca have any regret? Does she apologize to Esav and her husband for having cheated them and favoring one son over the other? On the surface, she is so sure of herself. She is self-confidence. And so, when we look at Otef, when Otef is used in Parshat Toldot, it is used for trickery. It is used in a negative connotation. Unlike the other places where Otef is used to wrap yourself in love, to wrap yourself in mercy, to wrap yourself in kindness. And so Naomi Gretz suggests maybe we shouldn't say Otef Aza, because when we say Otef, we're wrapping ourselves from the evil that is Hamas next to Israel, but instead, maybe we should say Mangine Yisrael. Those Gaza-adjacent communities should be defenders of Israel. Again, just using language to explore or to explain a philosophy that is very, very, very different. And in fact, this is fascinating in Psalm 73, because the word Otef is used in the same sentence as the word Hamas. Hamas is not referring to the terrorist organization, but is referring to lawlessness, which we do know Hamas today brings on. So here it goes. Psalm 73 says, "As for me, my feet has almost strayed. My steps were nearly let off course, for I envied the wanton. I saw the wicked at ease. Death has no pangs for them. Their body is healthy. They have no part in the travail of men. They are not afflicted like the rest of mankind. So pride adorns their necks. Lawlessness enwraps them as a mantle." In Hebrew, lachen anaktamo ga'ava, they have pride. Ya'atof shit chamas lamo. They scoff and plan evil, and from their eminence they plan wrongdoing. So what's the lesson to take of Parsha Toldot in the framework of the Otef? The Otef, Gaza, the communities that are the Gaza envelope, they should not be defined upon what's next to them, but they should be defined upon who they are. And the same is true with Yaakov. He should not be defined upon what he wrapped himself in the fur of Esav, but he should be defined upon what he is, what he stands. And tonight, we will witness a miracle at Sinai Temple. Omer Shem Tov, the hostage for 505 days in the tunnels of Hamas. His picture was on the wall of our sanctuary. We looked at him. We prayed for him. And now tonight, we will not look at a picture, but we will hug him. We will embrace him. We will lehit atef be'ahava. We will embrace him with love. It was in that Otef, the Gaza envelope, where he was at the Nova Festival, where he was kidnapped. His mother tells the story that when he pinged them on the Google Maps, she watched the pin go into Gaza, watching her son drive right into captivity. But today, he is not a hostage. He is not a released hostage, but he is a free Jew. She'asani ben Chorin. And so tonight, join us as we read Parshat Toldot this week. Think about, what do you want to wrap yourself in? What do you want to envelop yourself in? Over these last 2 years, we have enveloped ourselves in the physical, spiritual gathering of people together at Sinai Temple, which has led to so much love, which has led to so much kindness, which has led to each one of us making a difference to make this world a better place. So yes, Jacob gets the birthright over Esav, but he does it in a tricky way. Maybe next time, when we get that birthright, Yaakov becomes Yisrael. Jacob becomes Israel. When we know Yisrael literally means to struggle with God. Each day, perhaps, is a struggle. But how we use that word lehitatef, how we envelop ourselves and what we envelop ourselves in, that is what makes the difference. A Chodesh Tov, a Shabbat